AI is good enough for buyers agents, but they're admitting that AI is not necessarily good enough for listing agents. So they're not replacing listing agents, they're just trying to replace buyers agents.
Exactly. And their whole thing is they're actually trying to build their platform by marketing to listing agents and sellers like, hey, we're an advocate for you, to use this platform and everything, because by buyers using us, you're not having to pay buyer's agent commissions. And, I just feel like the NAR thing started this whole slippery slope that we're now, heading down. Who knows where it's going to end up, but yeah.
I would still charge 6% if I had to do a whole transaction with a robot. Oh, you really fixing to pay, because I'm doing a transaction right now and the buyer's agent is mainly a speaker of another language. She refuses to answer my calls, acknowledge my calls, respond or return my texts, nothing. It is strictly email. Every time I ask her, can you call me? She emails and says, oh, yes. Is everything okay? What did you need? Like, everything is an email. And so it's been the most frustrating experience because I can't negotiate. I feel like, I'm not being able to really do the best job for my seller because I can't ever, she won't answer the phone. She won't have a conversation with me. And I feel like that same frustration would arise if I'm doing a whole transaction with technology.
Yes.
Technology.
Well, since we're already in it, if you haven't figured it out by now, we're talking about AI and the influence that it's going to be having in the real estate industry, because it's happening whether you want it to happen or not. AI is going to be a thing. And so there was one article in particular that I thought was very interesting, which talked about a company which is seeking to utilize its AI software, if you will, to replace buyer's agents. And so buyer's agents will no longer be required if they are successful at doing what it is that they want to do. They will no longer be necessary in the eyes of this company, if you will. But their thing is that, home buyers can essentially purchase a home without an agent. So the home buyers would go to this, Homa is the name of the company, and they're launching a trial in Florida. And so it's an AI powered alternative to a buyer's agent. And basically Homa would allow a home buyer to go onto that platform and they can research whatever property they want to research that they're looking at potentially purchasing. And then the AI powered agent, if you will, would help the buyer determine what would be a good price to offer for the home. It would help the buyer create a purchase and sale offer to make to the seller. And basically all of this, being done just within the software and it would not be an agent, basically a buyer's agent would not be required. But it also did state in the article, Homa does not represent buyers in transactions, but it aims to be a cheaper do-it-yourself option that supplies all the tools that buyers would need, which I thought was kind of like it was like a sentence that conflicted with itself. Like, it does not represent buyers in the transaction, but it aims to be a cheaper do-it-yourself option that supplies all of the tools that buyers need. But buyers need representation throughout the transaction, which is I don't quite get that statement, but perhaps you could shed some light as a seasoned real estate veteran.
You know what? I'm just over here rolling my eyes because there's certain things that take intuition. It takes instincts. And that's something that you will never be able to get with a machine, with a robot. What was that movie, I, Robot, where the little boy, robots, they can't there's a certain emotional aspect to
Mm-hmm.
both buying and selling a home.
Mm-hmm.
And buying a home is one of the single most stressful things that you will ever do in your life, because it's one of the biggest purchases that most people will make
Mm-hmm.
in their entire life. And every single transaction that I've had in the last 7 years, I've had to counsel, talk my clients off the ledge, whichever side I was on. Um, and overall, one of the reasons why my clients recommend me is because of that emotional aspect that I would provide. But moreover, when you have the experience, you know, experience really counts for something, because you start seeing the same thing over and over again. And I think, like with AI, they have algorithms
Mm-hmm.
that they are created from patterns, of course, but certain things, I would never advocate strictly for AI, because certain things in this industry, certain people are very cutthroat. They do things underhanded. And it takes a wise, savvy person, what I tell people all the time, because I've had this one listing that I've been nurturing since September. They text me last week and was like, "Hey, we think we found a buyer. So we'll let you know at the end of the week whether or not we're going to utilize your services." And I tell people all the time, if one party is represented by an agent,
Mm-hmm.
the other party, don't ever go into, as a lay person that has no real estate industry experience, go into a transaction and not use an agent if the seller has an agent. Or
Mm-hmm.
if you are the seller, not use an agent if the buyer has an agent. Because agents have specified knowledge of these contracts, that you just can't train. I don't see how you can train an AI model to be able to properly represent someone in a transaction, especially, through and these people that are getting on the bandwagon right now with these what is it, when a prototype kind of, I think it's a prototype right now, because
Yeah.
none of this is proven to work.
No, it's a trial
You
run.
poor Floridians. You poor Floridians. Okay, I'm going to get licensed in Florida. So just in case anybody needs me, because this is ridiculous. I'm trying not to be so emotional, Frederick. I'm sorry.
No,
Let
you're
me just
good,
calm down.
because you know what? It's something it's inevitable. It's gonna happen, because we are in, throughout history, you've seen societies move from different eras, different generations. There's like the agricultural era where everyone who owned land, that was where wealth was, and everybody wanted to buy land, wanted to own more land. And then you moved into an industrial age where people wanted to have the equipment, because if you own the tools and the equipment and the machines, that's where it was. And then at some point we moved into, it was the internet phase where everything was like on the internet and in the cloud and everything. And then it was like distribution age. If you could own the distribution outlets, or you own the platforms, that's where wealth was generated, or that's where a lot of people were flocking to. And then it was like the partnership age, if you will, like where it moved from being just a distributor where you're trying to get everybody to your platform, to where now it's like, oh, everybody wants to partner with everybody now. Affiliates everywhere. You don't have to have your own thing. You can sell someone else's thing and make money. And so it's like partners everywhere. I'm an Amazon affiliate. People that their whole business, they make 6 figures, 7 figures just selling other people's products. And then you see us moving into this AI age now where everything is AI. And it's just becoming more and more pervasive, where I think, I won't say everyone's job is in trouble, so to speak. If you're a painter,
Everybody's job is in trouble. If you gonna say it out, everybody's job, even your pastor's job is on the line. They're gonna have AI pastor next. Do you know, when I look up a scripture on Google, Google AI will actually summarize the meaning of scriptures. I said, this is so dangerous. What if they interpret it wrong? You're going to have so many people led astray. Not even talking about real estate, but hey,
you know what?
It's the way of the world.
You know what? I actually, I've used AI like once or twice for it. It was because I had never thought about it before. I was at church and I was talking with another person. I serve at on the production team at the church, and I was talking to another person who was serving in production, and we got on this conversation of AI, and she was talking about how she was like, "Yeah, I use AI for my Bible studies," and I was like, AI for your Bible studies? And she was like, yeah, like I say what I want to study, what are scriptures that I can cross-reference with this point, or if it's something that I need more research on or I want to pray about, it's like, give me scriptures for this topic and everything. And I was like, I never thought about using AI for Bible
You got
study.
the Holy Ghost. What do you need AI for if you got the Holy Ghost? Ain't the Holy Ghost supposed to be able to be telling you all this? I don't understand it, Frederick.
Yeah.
He's replacing, he is the supreme all-knowing intelligence of the universe. But AI wants to set itself in this place. I mean, I think it's obvious by now that how anti-AI I am.
Mm-hmm.
I just refuse to use, because I don't want to become dependent on it. Because when you have a sharp mind naturally, if you start using a crutch, eventually that part of whatever you're using the crutch will weaken.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I feel. So but like you said, there's no way that we can't not embrace it in some aspect because it's here.
And I mean, it does make life easier for me. I will say, like, I have, it's been a few months since I've written like a description for a social media post. It's like, hey, I've got this video, this is the topic, write me a good SEO, search engine optimization, description with hashtags for this topic, and it'll just write it. And I'll be like, oh, that's beautiful. Copy, paste, post. And it's like, that is amazing. It saves someone. When you're a one-man band, it is so difficult to be getting everything done that you want to get done. And I still can't get everything done, but AI at least helps me to accomplish a little bit more than what I would have been able to accomplish if I did not have that tool. So I will say I do utilize it. However, I do not see it as a replacement for a real estate agent. And the reason is because, how can I put this delicately?
Don't just give it to us raw. Come on.
There's a lot of ignorance out there. There's a lot of ignorance out there. A lot of people who don't know squat about what they're doing when it comes to real estate. And that's not to harp on anyone individually, but
at all.
Because if you're like, well, I know what I'm talking about, well, then I'm not talking about you. But if you're like, yep, you know what? I have no idea if, what I would be doing if I had to go buy a house right now. There's a lot of ignorance out there. And so when you, with the immense amount of people out there that don't know what they're doing, to just rely on AI from a company to make the decisions for you, what is the company's motive? Are they looking out for your best interest? I am of the mindset that I don't think they are, because I mean, companies, we mentioned it in the last broadcast, they're out there for a profit. They're out there to make money. They need to, make a profit and everything. But it's like you're just trusting whatever software that the companies put out there to just make the decisions for you. And there are biases within the programming of these algorithms as well. I know there was times where you would get, if you were to Google certain stuff, you would notice there are biases even when you Google certain stuff about African-American individuals or people versus, other people who are perhaps Caucasian. There are biases in so many things, and there are humans who have biases, humans who have prejudices that are programming these AI engines to feed you with whatever it is they want to feed you with. It's like, I'll hop on Zillow for a minute. So a lot of people are familiar with Zillow because it's like the biggest search engine out there when it comes to people looking to purchase a home. When it comes to Zillow, a lot of people know about the Zestimate. The Zestimate ranks, the value of your home, essentially. And we know that, it's not perfect. Nothing is perfect. There are flaws in everything. But it gives you what Zillow says is an accurate-ish value of your home. But what are those numbers coming from? They're coming from programming that has been, programmed in by whoever Zillow hired to, create these algorithms that are saying these houses are worth more than these houses. These, things are, of a higher value in this part of town than these properties or whatever. To me, it's just another way to extend some of the same issues and automate some of the same issues that we have when you're dealing with the human to human connection. But now when you cut out the humans that could advise someone against some of those things that are being done wrong, now who's there to help advise people that, hey, you need to fight back against this and that? You're just really depending upon whatever it is that an AI agent says.
Two things about Zillow. Okay, as a listing agent, I've had so many more listings this last year than buyers, but as a listing agent, whenever I know that I have a listing coming up, there's several sites that I'll check just to see if when I run the comps and I come up with my number, what all these, websites are telling, and they're for the off-market home, what their value is, right? Mm-hmm. So I'll go to Redfin, I'll look on Zillow, and then I'll look in Remine, which is agent specific. And of course you want to look at the tax, assessment to kind of see, we never go by the tax assessment specifically, but, to make sure that we're at least not pricing under the tax assessment. But one thing I've noticed is, let's say that I have a crazy client who wants me to price their home nearly $300K above what the market is saying. True story. What'll happen is, let's say I price the house at $550, but it really should be, more closer to $500K, right? Mm-hmm. What Zillow will do is, if I have the listing price at $550, Zillow, when the price is higher than the Zestimate, naturally, Zillow will go a few $1,000s below that. But if the price is right around where Zillow had the Zestimate will match the listing price. Mm-hmm. This is what I've seen with my own two eyes on just about all of my listings the last year. Oh, wow. So Zillow will undermine the listing agent's price if they are overpriced, which in this economy and in this real estate market right now, everything is overpriced. We're kind of going through a market correction because we've seen so many houses. They're staying on the market longer, and we're seeing a lot of price reductions. And this is newer behavior than what we've seen in the real estate market recently. Mm-hmm. And, the other thing about Zillow is, Zillow, it's not all bad, because like I said, even I use Zillow.
Oh yeah.
But Zillow will take into account to give these estimates. They will take into account both public records and MLS sales. Mm-hmm. So that's a good thing, because most agents, when we're going in for comps, we're looking straight at MLS listings. Mm-hmm. We don't go into other software to pull up public records, which means this was an off-market sale. And a lot of times off-market sales, this is why FSBOs, for sale by owners, they think that a lot of times they're always overpriced, and most of the time they end up selling for less. Mm-hmm. But it can really change the curve of what it could be for, the market price. But Zillow is taking into account, public records and the square feet, that whatever's in the public records, this is what it's going to go for. But it's not taking into account, maybe this seller did an addition. Maybe this seller recently did renovations. Maybe the house is in disrepair. Mm-hmm. So you have these sellers, they will go to Zillow before they even call a listing agent and say, I know my house is worth such and such and such. And so as the listing agent, it makes our job harder if we're like, well, no, the market is saying you're likely to sell at this lower price. Well, Zillow, the Zestimate. And so I think when they can't find someone to agree with, their assessment of their home, and trust me, most sellers have an inflated view of what their home is worth, especially when they have no real estate experience. But it's making it, that will make Zillow and everyone else, well, if you won't list it for this, then I will. And you try to tell them, well, you're gonna be sitting on the market for a while, they would rather see it and experience it than take your word for it, because to them, they could be missing out on tens of thousands of dollars, maybe even $100,000 of value from listening to you as the agent, as the one with the experience. So,
and on the education piece of it, because the Zestimate is an AI software. It takes it takes data that's out there from recent home sales in the area. It takes data from current listings in the area. It takes data even now in a video that I watched from the pictures that are posted and the quality of, the images that are posted when a home gets listed for sale. It looks at all of that stuff to try and make this assessment of what the Zestimate is, or that Zillow estimate is of a home. And so it is an AI agent, but with that and all of the other AI things that are incorporated within Zillow, and with this particular part, not just Zillow, Realtor.com, Redfin, all of them, people who are, again, uneducated in the home buying process and don't know what all goes into that, they are uninformed of, like, when they see a number, not knowing how to break that number down and say, okay, this is not accurate or this is accurate. Because in addition to this estimate, there will be this is what your estimated monthly payment will be. Well, a lot of times that number is very false. It's very much lower than what your actual monthly payment would be. People should actually be going to a loan officer and asking them, hey, what is a good estimate of my monthly payment? That loan officer can then dig into the tax records, find out what the taxes are going to be for a particular home. They can also let you know a good assessment on what the homeowner's insurance will be, how much the principal and interest is going to be based on your interest rate, but also based on your down payment. If you look at the estimated monthly payment that you might see on Zillow or Realtor.com or Redfin or anything like that, a lot of times is very low because they estimate a 20% down payment. I have rarely done a transaction for a home buyer who had put 20% on their down payment. Most people don't have 20%. If you're buying a $200,000 home, which those are hard to find, but let's just say you're buying a $200,000 home, that's $40,000 if you were gonna put 20% down. Most people don't have $40,000 to put down on a home. And that's just for a $200,000 home. Most people put the FHA minimum, if it's an FHA loan, which is 3.5%. 3.5% of that $200,000 is $7,000. 3.5% of that $400,000 is $14,000. So most people are doing that, and that drastically affects what your monthly payment is. So and I actually had this conversation. It was literally about a week and a half ago, where I had a client that I'm currently working with who sent me a home. They wanted to get under contract with it. I was like, okay, we can, work toward getting you under contract with this home. And then I send them an estimate, letting them know this is what the closing costs are going to be, your down payment, and this is what your monthly payment is going to be. And when I showed them the monthly payment, they were like, whoa, that's way more than what I was expecting. I don't want to pay that much in a monthly payment. I was like, okay, well, what were you expecting? And then they sent me a Zillow link to a listing and showed me where it said, this is what Zillow said my monthly payment was going to be. And I had to educate them that what Zillow says is not accurate when it comes to your monthly payment, because you're not putting 20% down on your home. But the thing is, when you're putting numbers out there and you're not providing education behind it, which to my knowledge, Zillow's not providing that education. They lead with the numbers. When you look at a home, they're not leading with education on how you should interpret the information they're giving you. They're leading with the numbers. And so people who are uneducated see those numbers and they take it and run with it. Oh, that house, I could afford that monthly payment. It's like, but that's not the accurate monthly payment if you were actually going to buy that house. So these are some of, and I've also seen those numbers where the taxes are set at zero. It didn't even include an accurate amount for taxes or homeowners insurance. It's like, I've seen those numbers all sorts of skewed, where it's like people just take those numbers and run with it because they don't know. And I think a lot of that is misleading when it comes to just AI in general, pushing out information to an uneducated group of home buyers that are taking that information and running with it. Or even worse, AI is advising uneducated home buyers. And now those uneducated home buyers are going based off of the advice of an AI, which again has been programmed by someone who has biases. And yeah, I just see this going so many wrong directions.
All kind of ways are wrong. All kind of ways are wrong.
Yeah.
And another thing that these mortgage calculators and Zillow doesn't take into account when they're giving these people their alleged monthly payment is, and as a mortgage loan officer, your credit score determines your interest rate, which then determines, your payment. It has a big effect on your payment. So, the borrower that's barely qualifying, they have a 600 credit score. They're getting all excited about, somebody, I don't know what kind of credit score, the Zillow estimate on how much they pay per month. I don't know what kind of credit score it's using, but that people with lower or poor credit pay more for everything. And so they're just getting these people so excited about numbers that just are not realistic. And then not only that, most people are largely clueless about their correct credit score because 9 out of 10 people you ask, they're using Credit Karma. Credit Karma uses Vantage Score, which is Vantage and FICO are competitors. FICO's been around for a lot longer. Anytime you're going for a house or a car, they're usually going to use your FICO score. Vantage Score, I don't know who uses Vantage Score, no one seriously.
If you're getting like a store
Vantage
credit card or something like that, I think like a store card or something like,
Yeah. And Vantage is always going to be slightly higher, usually. FICO score is going to be more accurate, more realistic. And then you have several different numbers of FICO. FICO 9, FICO 7, or whatever. And then you have middle scores, and you have the lower score. And so it's not taking all these things into consideration. And every mortgage lender that you talk to may use not only a different credit bureau, and they all have different parameters. Like, all of them may take into account credit history, on-time payments, and amount of credit being utilized, right? But each of those factors with each bureau will be weighted different. Equifax may say 40% of your score is based on how much available credit you have. But TransUnion may say, oh, well, we only look at 20% of that. So that's why each of your numbers with TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian are different. And so all of these factors are just not taken into consideration, because depending on which mortgage loan officer you use, which company they're with, and what their parameters are. I know, Frederick, you and I were talking about a buyer a couple of months ago, and I was like, I don't know. And recently, there was a little switcheroo, and so I was like, okay, well, what kind of information do you guys use? And you said, well, we can use all three, a combination. We can use just one. It just depends on, what the underwriter has a lot to do with that as well, right? So
Yeah, yeah. That underwriter has it. It's funny. It's like you would like to think that there's consistency across the board with everything, and for the most part, I will say there is. However, there are the guidelines which we all use, but then there's the interpretation of the guidelines, which is where you see the differences in play. And so, yeah, like you said, there, depending on the underwriter that you get, it could swing one way or the other, and that can vary from company to company. So, yeah, trying to be as consistent as you would like to be. I mean, it's going to be some variations, but
and then you want to throw AI in the mix.
Yeah,
you want to throw AI in the mix.
So, point in case, there was a client that I spoke with about a week and a half ago, different client, but this particular client came and she is wanting to get approved to be able to purchase a home. And so I was like, okay, well, let's take a look at everything. And, I always have a conversation with people first before we get to, taking applications and pulling credit and everything. It's like, let's just have a conversation. Let's see where you're at. Because you know what, based on where you're at right now, it might not even be time for you to purchase a home based on, what your situation is. And we could just avoid wasting your time, filling out an application, having your credit pulled, all that other stuff. So we have a conversation first. And this individual has tried to get approved to purchase a home before through another company. This other company who's very well known in utilizing AI as well. When I was talking with her, I was like, hey, so what were you told by your previous, loan officer? And she was like, oh, well, my loan officer, they were saying that my debt to income ratio was a little bit too high. I was like, okay. And my credit score was about this. I was like, okay, so did they include, the income that you had in this area? Because she had another source of income. And I was like, was this included as well? And she was like, well, no, I didn't include that. I was like, okay, but did your loan officer ask for it? And they were like, well, I never actually spoke with the loan officer. It was like a software. So basically you put in your application, it pulls your credit, and you put in your income, you upload your documents, and it tells you this is what you qualify for. And I'm like, okay, and see, and I'm not telling her this, but I'm thinking in my head, this is part of the problem, is because you got a denial based off of incomplete information. So had this other source of income that you had been included in there, that could have lowered your debt to income ratio. It would have lowered your debt to income ratio. And then what other programs are out there that could have been beneficial for you to tap into and utilize that would have helped you get qualified? But even just the one thing of, hey, asking questions that, most loan officers would have asked, do you have any other sources of income? Are you paid by X, Y, and Z? Or do you have any of these other things? Oh, yes, I actually do have that. Okay, get me the statements for that. Let's include that income. It's going to lower your debt to income ratio. We're going to be able to get you qualified. But she received a denial because the AI is not programmed. It's not asking these questions. And so she just puts in her information, uploads a couple documents, has her credit pulled, and it's like, nope, you don't qualify. Your debt to income ratio is too high in this, and this is what it is right now. You need to work on improving your credit or whatever. But it's like, but actually that person could qualify if she were talking with the actual loan officer who could walk her through the situation as well, which is what I try to do with all my clients. But just one example of how I don't think AI, at least at the stage where it is right now, is serving us on any level
Prototype.
I don't think. And I will say this to speak a little bit on the other side of the fence, the people that are very, very pro AI, because clearly with whole companies that are being started to put buyer's agents out of business, someone is thinking AI is the future. So I will say this to their point. AI will continue to get better. As with anything, when it starts off, it's not great. It sucks. But it will continue to get better. And when automobiles first were made, they were not, efficient. They were not great, but, and some people say they actually work better than they do now. So, who's to say? But in any case, it's like when the internet first came out. I don't know if you remember you used to get a disc in the mail, like AOL, and you had to upload the disc to get the internet.
16 hours free. That's it. After that, your dial-up is going to shut off, and then you got to get another one.
Oh, and no one better pick up the phone if it rings, because there was no DSL at the time where you could be on the phone and use your internet at the same time. So if you were in the middle of downloading something really long and the phone rang and someone picked it up, your internet got cut off and you had to start all the way over from scratch again. Oh, Gen Z now has no idea. Has no idea of the
Frederick, we're aging ourselves.
We are.
Going to the next point.
I feel like I have lived at such a great time to where I'm okay being the age I'm at. It's like I've experienced so much from record players, because we actually had a record player, and cassette tapes. I didn't know people had 8 tracks. But it's like cassette tapes and then CDs, or Walkman, the iPod. I mean, from where our parents were, it seemed like everything moved, a lot slower, but then we caught the tail end of that to experience that all the way up to AI, where you could type something and it just does stuff for you. Images can be created for you on AI. Video is made by AI. AI generated people on social media. It's like, I feel like we have been we can stretch across the chasm, if you will, and like hold a piece of the past from our childhood, but then we're holding on to where we're grasping where we're at right now, and then where it's heading to. So, but yeah, I think that, where was I going with that? It was, I forgot where I was going with that, but it was, it'll come back to me probably after we finish this whole broadcast or recording. But anyways, I think that AI, oh yes, that's what it was. I think it will continue to get better. I think that it will continue to improve, just to speak to the side of all the people that are very pro AI. I'm not against AI, but I do believe that something in its infancy can cause damage to a lot of people, who are going through the trials of it. And I think that we need to, be very cognizant of that, especially when we are quick to try and adopt something because we think the newest thing is going to be the best thing, and that might not be the case. So I think that on the one hand, yes, AI is going to continue to get better. Will it get good enough to actually be a suitable replacement for a real estate agent? In my opinion, no. And the reason I say no is because you can call it what you will, there is a lack of trust that I have when it comes to companies and corporations who are programming the AI and who they're representing, who their allegiance is to, what their motivations are, versus a real estate agent who is advocating for you, who is they are representing you throughout this process. They are looking out for your best interest. They are looking out for the interest of you as their client. They are governed by rules and regulations that have been formed by the Georgia Real Estate Commission, or whatever real estate commission in whatever state you live in, or the National Association of Realtors, and the rules that they have in place. But who governs the AI? The companies that create them, and the agendas of the companies and the individuals that create them. That's what's shaping the AI, versus you as an agent, and you are approached by a buyer who wants to buy a home, and you're like, you know what? I want you to buy this home. I'm advocating for you. I know what it is that you need. I'm going to help you get that. I'm going to help you negotiate that. We're going to look at these different programs. I've got connections with I do not foresee AI getting to a point where it will ever be as good as having a real estate agent. I just don't. And I could be wrong on that. I don't think I am. Because again, a machine that's programmed by someone that has a motive and an agenda that's not to look out for the best interest of every single home buyer there. I don't trust that model. I do think it'll get better and better and better. It will improve, I think, leaps and bounds over where it is right now, but it will never be a equal comparison, in my opinion, to just having a real estate agent that is advocating and working for you to help close on a home.
Yeah. The human mind. See, there's no replacement for the human mind. Because when we, no, this player, but honestly, I totally agree. One thing that a lot of my clients are, whether they're buyers or sellers, that they have been so grateful for is because of my experience. I have told them from the beginning exactly what's going to happen at each stage of the process before it happens, so they're prepared. Whether they're a first-time home buyer, first-time home seller, or not, when years go by, even when they're experienced, but years go by in between transactions, there's a lot of the process that they forget. There's a lot of expenses that come up that I prepare my clients for ahead of time. You know, AI, you know, maybe they can list them out, but, you know, the termite letter, a HOA closing letter, that's hundreds of dollars. All of these things my clients have always appreciated. And I think I've said this before in one of our prior episodes, but when you tell people about stressful situations that are in stressful situations, about what to expect, even when, you know, when you and I have transacted together with the buyers that you've approved for me, I've told them, you know, ahead of time, because I know how I felt. Frederick is going to ask you for documents. Don't have an attitude with him. He's probably going to ask you for the same documents. And every time that your loan goes to another stage of the process, they're going to ask you for those same documents again. Just give it to them. Just give it to them. And for a first-time home buyer, that alone is gold, because the frustration that comes along with being asked over and over again for documents that you know you sent. Mm-hmm. Is AI going to do that for you? Is AI going to really prepare you for what you could and could not expect? Maybe in the future, but again, that's that emotional aspect. This is going to be one of the most frustrating things, but just hold on, because on the other end of this, you're going to have an asset that you can hold on to forever, that will create wealth for you forever. Don't give up. You know, even if it seems that they're over conditioning you, give them exactly whatever it is that they're asking for, because if you don't, then you don't get the house. They hold the power. You know, just letting your clients know what to expect is one of those things, and they appreciate you that much more. So you can't convince me that there will ever be a good or rightful replacement for what I do. And I have so many agent friends who will attest to that. But all I can say is, you'll see. All of y'all, you'll see.
Well,
go ahead. You'll see.
I'll leave you with one last parting thing, and not you particularly, but just everyone that's watching right now. Just think for a minute. Why? And I'm just asking this question: why do you think these companies are wanting to embrace AI? One of the more expensive parts of a transaction in real estate are the loan officers that are involved, or on, you know, the real estate side, the agents, you know, and what the agents provide. Those are, just being honest, some of the more expensive parts of a real estate transaction. So loan officers get paid, but they also, you know, do a lot of work on the front end to bring in loans and everything like that. And they're also paid off commission, meaning that for the overwhelming majority of loan officers, if they don't sell a home, they don't get paid. But in any case, when they do sell a home, it is an expense for a company or corporation, because you now have to pay them for all of that work that's been done. Same thing with an agent. Whatever the percentage is that agents get paid, because it can vary from different places across the country, it is an expense that, tends to fall upon whether it's the buyer or the seller. Even if you go to the brokerage, the real estate agent typically gets more than what the brokerage gets for that transaction. Obviously, the real estate agent is doing most of the work, but if you're looking at it from a business standpoint and you're asking yourself, why is it that they're wanting to adopt AI? Some of the big companies that have the budgets and the bank to be able to finance all of this research and investment to try and build out these AI models. Is it because it's what they truly think is going to be in the best interest of the consumer, which perhaps on some level they do believe that it will be? But is it also because they believe, if we're able to get this thing good enough to where we can eliminate one of the more expensive parts of the transaction, that's going to equal more money in our coffers, more money in our pockets? Again, it could be a little bit of both, but I just am not of the mindset that it's all being done with 100% pure, this is what's going to be better for the end user. I think it's being done as this is going to, at some level, when we develop this out to a point to where it can be sustaining and very accurate, it's going to help us make even more and more money. It's going to help us garner more and more of the competition. It's going to help us to be able to do more with less people, so we don't have to hire out as much. Because people in general, not just in real estate, in general, are the more expensive parts of anything. If you're working at a fast food restaurant, what you're paying people to make hamburgers and dip fries in oil is costing you a lot when you're adding in what you're paying them on their, hourly wages and, if they insurance that you got to have for them and all this other stuff. If you could have a machine that could just do that, you don't have to pay the machine. There's no such thing as overworking the machine. You can have that machine working 24 hours a day, flipping hamburgers and whatever else. You're saving so much money just by having a machine replace however many people you now have to pay and all the work rules and laws and regulations that come into place. I mean, just think about it for a minute. If you could take AI and replace real estate agents, you could take AI and replace loan officers, you could take AI and replace all these people that are so expensive for your company and your corporation. Just think about some of the motivations that you think are behind it. I'll leave that up to you to where your mind wanders when you think about that. But I've already had these discussions in my mind. I've already had these deep thoughts on, where things are going and where things are headed. It's a train that you're not going to be able to stop, but you can, in knowing where it's going to be headed next, at least try to position yourself to, be educated and in a place that's going to put you in a better position moving forward. So. That is all that we have, but it's been good. So as always, Fridays, make sure you check in. We'll be dropping a new episode every Friday and Tuesdays on Home Finance Hacks, 7 p.m. live Eastern Standard Time, right here on YouTube. I will be broadcasting another episode of Home Finance Hacks. So that is what we have. Take care, be blessed, and until next time, we'll see you in the next episode.